Hey everybody, today I'm going to review something called the Lumber-Lok plate vise. And what this is a solid piece of metal that's designed to hold lumber in place while you cut it or drill into it or even plane sections of it off. Now what's real nice is the fact that it is going to hold it very securely. You're not going to have to rig something up either in the workshop or maybe out on a job site. This is going to hold everything securely for you and you're not going to really run the risk of hurting yourself. Now, I first saw these in my local Lowe's a few months ago, and after doing some more research on it, I could see that the company that actually makes these is a company called Tri-Vise Industries. And when I did some research about them online, I could see that they also make a product that holds 5-gallon buckets in place when you're mixing up mud or maybe even up on a roof. Now, the reason that I was very comfortable with getting this is the fact that I did buy 2 of those bucket locks like 2 years ago. I kept one and I gave my father one, and neither one of us have had any problems out of them at all. So, I thought I'd give them another shot and see what the Lumber-Lok plate vise was all about. After getting one of them and bringing it back here to the shop, I put some wood in here and I could realize very quickly that it is going to cut if it's at an angle. So you'll stick the wood through there and then you would cut the waste off the end. So let's say you want to cut 5 inches off the end of here, you would stick 5 inches through and then cut that off. Now it is a very good distance off the ground, so even if you have your blade all the way down, it's not going to actually hit anything as you cut. But my concern was, let's say we had a 12-foot board and you want to cut 3 feet off the end. Because it is at an angle, when you get to the end of the cut, that 3 feet of board could bind your blade up. So I actually just got back from Lowe's. I went down and bought another one of these. We're going to do some testing next to see how it performs when you just use one, and we're also going to see testing when you actually use 2 of them at the same time. So here's a closer look at the plate vise. You can see all the different openings that they have to accommodate the different sizes of lumber. Now some of them, such as this top one, will only accommodate a 2x12, but this center one right here is going to accommodate a 4x4 post, a 4x6 post, or a 4x8 post. Well, if we flip it over right here, the 2x10 slot is also going to fit a 2x2 because it has an additional notch out right here. And then this side is going to fit multiple sizes. This side will fit multiple sizes. And then the top up here is going to have a 2x10 slot. So it's going to range anywhere from a 1x4 on the small side all the way up to a 2x12. So you'll have a massive amount of different size boards that you can use with this. They do have a built-in ruler across the top, going from 1 inches all the way up to 12 inches. And the total dimensions of the plate vise is roughly 14 inches wide by 12 inches high. Now because there is a hole pre-drilled in the top, this is going to allow you to hang it upright on the wall or in your shed or even on a pegboard like this. You can see you can loop it right over one of the pegs and it's going to hang in place until you need to use it. Okay, now we're going to test it out with 2x material to start out. I have a 2x4, a 2x6, a 2x8, a 2x10, as well as a 2x12. And the 2x12 is going to be the maximum size 2x material that this is rated to handle. And what we're going to do is use the Makita brushless circular saw. And what I'll just do is just cut through each one of these so we can see if it's going to move around or if it's going to do a good job. So starting out with the 2x4, I'll go ahead and slide that down. I'll line it up with the slot. And then just pressing down with just moderate force so I don't bend the metal and I don't want it to move around. So just pressing down on it, you can see it's not moving around on me. I can now take the circular saw and make a straight cut right through it. So we got that one cut. Now moving on to the 2x6. I'll just go ahead and move this out of the way. The 2x6 is going to go through the exact same slot. We'll go ahead and move that back exactly the same way. Press down onto it. And you can see it's not moving. And this is a concrete floor. So just keep that in mind. If this was on a deck or maybe out in some gravel, you would have even more for it to grab onto. But a smooth surface like this concrete floor is where I think it would slide around the most. So now the 2x6. Cut through it, it didn't move at all. I'll go ahead and move on to the 2x8. Now I do need to rotate at this point. Luckily every hole in the plate vise is marked with what size lumber it is. So right here is the 2x4 and the 2x6. The 2x8 you must rotate a quarter turn and it's marked right here. So it's not the top hole, it's going to be the one underneath. And I'll go ahead and just put it through there exactly the same way. So sliding this back. And you want the top of the vise to tilt backwards towards the end of the board that's touching the ground. You don't want it actually tilting forwards towards your cut. So here we go. This is the 2x8. Cut through it fine, there's no movement. Now onto a 2x10. Once again, this has its very own slot. Go ahead, put it through there, hold down, and go ahead and cut. And now finally we'll try the largest size, which is going to be the 2x12. Now a 2x12 of course has a lot more weight than any of these other ones. And I'll go ahead and just put it through its own little slot right here. So just moving that down, it's a nice tight fit. Same exact deal, I'll go ahead and take the saw, line it up, and go ahead and make a cut. And it cut through all 5 different 2x boards with no problems at all. It was held in place even though we're on the slick concrete floor, and it didn't move around at all. Now I want to go ahead, pop another vise on the other side of these boards and see how it does when it's exactly level. Okay, you can see the angle of the 2x12. Now I'm going to go ahead and add another vise on the other side. Now keep in mind you want both of these to be tilting towards the center of the board. You do not want them tilting in the same direction. So I'll go ahead, take the other vise, put it here on the other side, I'll tilt it in. I'll go ahead and realign this one to make sure it's nice and tight and even all the way across. And now you can see it's a pretty level work surface. Now what we can do at this point is go ahead and cut through this. The material would drop straight down and there's no chance of it binding the blade. So just pressing down on it a little bit, you can see it is going to move back and forth, unlike when it's actually touching the ground. So just keep that in mind. This is going to give you a little more play when you're cutting, and it's really, honestly, harder to hold on to. So I'll go ahead and just make another cut with this so we can see how the material is going to drop straight down. So you can see what I'm talking about. The material dropped straight down. It did not fall back onto the blade. So that's a nice feature, especially if you are cutting extended lengths off of longer boards. But my honest opinion is you really only need one of these unless you don't want the other end of your board to, let's say, touch the ground if it's wet outside or something like that. It might be handy just to have 2 of them. But I think for everyday use, one of them is going to work just fine. Now another feature is the fact that it can hold materials while you drill holes in them. Now this is a 1-inch self-feeding wood bit. What I'll go ahead and do now is drill a hole in the 2x4 and see how it does. And you can see it pop right through there. I wasn't even holding on to the side handle to keep the torque from twisting my wrist. All I did was just put moderate force down on the plate vise. It kept the 2x4 perfectly aligned, and I drilled the hole right through it. Now I would not advise that you use the plate vise to hold on to lumber that you're doing finish work on, like sanding or maybe routing off the edges or even planing it down if people are going to see it, and let's say you wanted to paint over top of this or stain it. What's going to happen is when you put it through the little groove and you press down with any force at all, it is going to leave an indentation on the wood. So if you can see this indentation right here, that is caused from the corner of the metal pressing into the wood. Now if you were, let's say, framing up a house or even building a deck, that's really not that big of a deal. But if you are going to be actually using this for interior work or something like that, it is going to leave an indentation in your wood, and that is going to cause you problems. Now if we turn the board over, you can see the other side also has an indentation. So how it wedges itself in there, you are going to have an indentation on both the wide surfaces on any board that you need to cut through. So now you've seen the LumberLok plate vise for yourself. Now I do like the fact that it's made out of some thick metal, it's completely painted all the way around, all the openings are marked to show you exactly what type of board is supposed to slide in there so you don't have to play the guessing game. And it did a great job at holding all the 2x material when we cut through it. From the 2x4 all the way up to the 2x12, it was very stable. I cut right through it very comfortably. Now the only time I really felt really uneasy about it is when I doubled it up with another plate vise And that 2x12 at that point was moving around on me. So I actually think it does a lot better because of its design when you're only using the board in conjunction with one plate vise. Really the only time I would suggest using two of these at the same time is if you're working in a very dirty environment or a wet environment. You just don't want your board touching the ground. Now, as far as cutting through it and drilling holes, I think it did a good job, but I would not suggest using this for finish work, either sanding or routing or doing anything like that, because what it's going to do is leave indentations on the board face. And if you stain that or paint it, it's going to stand out like a sore thumb. Now, as far as rough framing goes, a deck or even inside a house, nobody's going to see that. It's going to get covered up with drywall and it's not going to be a big deal. But if this is something that is going to be finish work, I would not suggest using the plate vise with that because it will damage the face of the wood. Now, this is not going to be a replacement for saw horses or even a miter saw stand, but it does have that convenience factor to it. You could keep this behind your, let's say, your truck seat in the magazine pouch. You could keep this on the side of your wall in your shed. It's not going to take up any room, and when you need to make a quick cut or drill a quick hole, it's going to be able to hold the board for you. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, because it doesn't take up any room, if you do have a small workshop, you're not going to have to pile it up with either saw horses or miter saw stand that you're very rarely going to use, and this is going to get that job done for you when you actually need it. Now, this is available at Lowe's as well as online, and it is 100% made in the USA. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe. And thanks for watching.